Kalkalosh Boker Or. Daf Yomi Masechet Batra Daf Ayin Daled Amud Aleph 174a1. Okay, says the Gemara as follows. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer. Rabbi Shimon comes in and he says like this: Im yesh nechasim laloveh, if there's properties to the borrower, echad zeh veechad zeh lo yipara mehen. Doesn't matter that the malveh cannot come and lipara, not from a regular adev or not from an adev kablan, without first trying from the borrower. Right? Why? Because he's got properties. So Amar Rabbi Chanan Yochanan says Rabbi Yochanan Kol makom sheshana Rabban Shimon Gamliel Mishnatenu. Anytime that you have Rashbag in the Mishnah, halakha kimotod halakha zakim, except for arev v'tzidon v'raya acharona. These are three different cases. Okay, Arev Tzidon v'Raya Achrona. Arev is what we just mentioned now. That basically that he's saying that even if there's an Arev Kablan, the Malveh cannot come and collect from him if there's properties. Tzidan is a machloket to do with the halacha and get of Gitin that happened in the city of Tzidan. And Raya Achrona is another machloket to do with Chachamim Rashbag, to do with a tova of a psak din or not. Okay, fine. So Amar Ravuna. Ravuna comes and he says, yeah, halvehu vani arev, halvehu vani porea. Imagine he comes and he says, lend him money and I'm going to be the arev. Or lend him money and I'm going to pay him up. Or halveu vani chayav. Or lend him and I'm going to be chayav. Halveu vani noten. Or lend him and I'm going to give it. So in all these cases, kulan, right? Kulan lashon arevut. What does it mean, kulan lashon arevut? Right? He comes and he says, all of them are going to be lashon of arev. Right? Why? Because basically he's trying to come and tell him, right, do this and I'm going to pay you back, or I'm going to do something, or I'm gonna be chayav, or I'm gonna give it to you. All these ten lo vani kablan, ten lo vani porea, ten lo vani chayav, ten lo vani noten, that's kablanut. So there's a difference between an arevut and a kablanut. Remember, arevut just means I'm a guarantor. Kablanut means that if he doesn't pay back, I'm going to come and I'm going to pay back for him. That's called, that you could collect from me even before going to him. That's called a kablan. Right? An arev is a guarantor. If he doesn't pay back, you have to pay back for him. But that's an arev. So one more time. Halveu vani arev. Obviously, that's an arev. Halveu vani porea. I'm going to pay you back. Or I'm going to be chayav. Or I'm going to give it. That's arevut. But if he says, give it to him and I'm a kablan. Give it to him and I'm going to pay back. Give it to him and I'm going to be chayav. Give it to him and I'm going to give. All of those are called kablanut. Yeah. There you have another Gemara. Everyone has Gemarot, yeah? Ibailehu. So now they're going to ask the following question. Halveu vani kablan. What happens now if he says halveu vani kablan? Remember, kablan was tenlo, right? Here he said halveu. Halveu was arevut, right? And now he comes and he says vani kablan. So it's a sira. Mitzad echad, he's coming and he's saying halvehu. Mitzad sheni, he comes and he says vani kablan. I'm going to be a kablan. So is it a kablan or is it a revut? Or the opposite, tenlo. He comes and he says, give it to him. Vani arev. And I'm going to be arev. My what's halacha? Amar Rabbi Yitzchak says Rabbi Yitzchak, lashon arevut, lashon kablanut. If it's lashon arevut stam, so it's arevut. If it's kablanut, it's kablanut. Okay, fine. Because we don't know. But he said the stam is the lashon of the arevut or the kablanut. Okay, fine. Rav Chasta comes and he says, Kulan Lashon Kablanut, except for Halveu Vani Arev. Meaning everything's Kablanut. The only thing which is going to be an Arevut is if he says Halveu Vani Arev. And Rava comes and he says, no, Kulan Lashon Arevutu, except for Ten Lo Vani Noten. The Netina is that I'm giving it Kiru even if you're not going to come and you're going to give it. Okay? Amale Mor Barameimar Lervashi. Says Mor Barameimar Lervashi. This is what Abba says, which is a meimar. Ten lo vani noten lo, en la malve ela love klum. If he says ten lo, give it to him, and I'm going to give it back, then he says the malve does not have on the love anything. There's no tviyah whatsoever. So he says the behemet, kibela arev el atzmo achrayut muchletet instead of the love, and therefore he can't even go to the love. He goes straight to the arev kablan. He goes straight to the arev. Remember, an arev kablan means that he's a guarantor. That kilu that he takes his place, and once he takes his place, you go directly for him, and you don't even go to the borrower. Mamash, like mamash, that's a real arev. Yeah, that's called arev kablan. Okay, so it says lohi, but it's not true. Lo mifta lo v'mineh demal ve'achisa v'item bayad. He says it's never going to be patur unless he's going to come and he's going to actually give it to the hands, right, of the loveh. Okay, that's what it means here. He says when he's giving it to his hands, so then he's showing the mamash kilu that he's not taking anything for himself. So that's what happens. So here, he actually in the footnote, you have a sikum there. Do you guys see it? He says there's 4 dargot of achrayut of an arev. Number one, he says an arev ragil. An arev ragil is a regular arev, a regular guarantor. He's going to be chayav to pay back after the guy tried to come and pay and get from the loveh. Then he has to pay it back. An arev שיתנה עמו המלווה שיגבה מכל מי שירצה, חייב לפרוע את החוב של המלווה, במקרה שאין ללווה קרקעות, only if he doesn't have properties. But if he does have קרקעות, he cannot come to him. Number three, an arev kablan. An arev kablan is that he accepted upon himself the mamash, that he could go to him directly, whether he has properties or doesn't have properties. And number four, im nasa arev et hamaot miyado shel malveh v'natan oto, if he took the money from the malveh and he gave it to the loveh, hu nechshav keloveh, he is the loveh. And therefore the malveh does not come to collect its chov only from him. The malveh could collect it from the loveh only if the arev has nothing what to pay back, which is usually the opposite. Usually the arev is the one that has the money to pay back. So if he doesn't have any money to pay back, then he could come and he could take it back. Fine. Says the Gemara story. Ha'u dayana de'achte lemalveh lenikse de loveh. There was a story of a dayan that he came and he put the malveh in the properties of the loveh to pay back. Even before coming and even demanding the money. Meaning, even before asking for the money, comes the dayan and he put him in the field. No, why? You owe him the money. Yeah, but he didn't ask for the money. Salke Rav Chanin berei de Rav Yeva. So Rav Chanin berei de Rav Yeva, he came and he took him off from his post. Right? He removed him from being a dayan. So Amar Rava says, Man Hakim lemeva ke'minta, who's the chacham to do such a thing? Ilav Rav Chanin, if it's not for Rav Chanin berei de Rav Yeva, he holds he holds that the properties are his arevim. Utnana, we learned, you don't come from the arev first, which means the guy was holding 1 second. Who's your arev? You know who your arev is? Your properties. It's like nowadays when a person takes a mortgage. Who's the person's arev? The house. The house has the lien on it. So he's saying that even before going to the guy, right, and asking him for the money back, you're taking the house key. So he says, if you're not supposed to take it from the arev first, you have to first go to the guy. Hahu arva diatma. He says there was also another story, right? This actually happened. He says Maaseh ba'arav shaya, right? He says it was on an arev, on a chov of yitomim. The parent the malveh mikamed delodin liyatmen, that he went and he paid back the malveh even before telling the yitomim. So Amar Rav Papa says priyat bal chov is a mitzvah. He says, do you know the yitomim, since they're ktanim, they don't have this mitzvah, right? They don't have this mitzvot. So therefore, the arev could not come and demand from them the money, but he has to wait until they become older. Rav Huna says, they could say that the father came of the yitomim and he came and he took the money from the Baal Chov during the time of his death, and therefore it's like a mashkon for the paying off of the chov, right? Kufa Ayin Daled Amud 174b. So my benayu, what exactly is the difference between these two shitot? At the end of the day, the arev came, right, and he actually was the arev for the yitomim. He paid it back even before the yitomim. We understand the first shita is saying, listen, yitomim do not have a mitzvah. So since yitomim do not have a chiyuv mitzvah, so you can ask them for any money to come and start paying back the loan of their father. So therefore, at the end of the day, you have to wait until they become bar mitzvah. Once they become bar mitzvah, another chayav to pay back. Right? But according to Rav Yeshua, that he comes and he says that the reason why the arev cannot come and ask anything from the yitomim is because tzrade atfese, which means that maybe be'emet he was hitpis biyad balachov during the time of his death and he gave him back the money, right? So then what's going on? My benah, what's the difference? If he admits, right, which means that at the time of the death, right, the father actually said, no, he still owes them the money. Meaning the second shita was maybe the guy right before he died, he paid back the loan. So obviously you can't collect from the yitomim. The yitomim have no clue what's going on in the property. And then what? You're going to double dip? You're going to collect again? Here the nafkamina is, what happens if the father, during the time of mitah, he admitted. He's saying, mamash, he's 5 minutes before his death, and he says, by the way, you should know, he didn't pay anything back. So he still owes the guy money. So in such a case, right, that chayav modeh, right, that's going to be a nafkamina between them. That obviously you would say that maybe the yitomim should pay back, because you know 100% that they owe the money. But if you're going to tell me that the reason that they're not chayav mitzvot because they're ktanim, so they have to wait until they become gdolim. Inami, another case also, the shamtuhu. Sorry, what does that mean? Shamtuhu. Shamtuhu means that they went and they put him in nidui, the father, because they went to bedin and they said you have to pay, and he didn't want to pay. So what happens? They put him in nidui, and then he died in nidui. So obviously he didn't pay back. If he didn't pay back, according to the first reason that the yitomim have to wait until they're gdolim to be chayav mitzvot, so he has to wait until they become older. and then he comes and he pays it back. They could demand from the Yitomim, and then the Yitomim will pay back. But according to the second reason that maybe you already paid it up, here you already know you didn't pay back. So if you already know you didn't pay it back, so here again you would admit that you would have to pay. Umet b'shamteh, and he actually died in his nidui. So again, these are the two different nafkaminas that we brought down of the two different answers. One more time. A person passes away. He left Yitomim. The Arev comes and he pays back right away. Why? So according to the first Shita, because a Yatom, if he's a Katan, he's not going to be Chayav in mitzvot. If he's not Chayav in mitzvot, he doesn't have to pay back. Until when? Until he get older. So when they become Bar Mitzvah, that's when you could demand the money. According to the second reason, the reason why Be'emet Yitomim you can't collect from Yitomim is because maybe the father already paid it back. Maybe the father paid it back. Right before his death, he gave them money and he paid it back. How are they going to know? They're not going to know. So because of that, you have to wait anyway. You don't go to the Yitomim. Says the Gemara, what's the nafkamina between the two answers? So when you know that he didn't pay back, two nafkaminas, either when he's modeh before his death and he never paid it back, right? Or if the second case is that he actually was put in nidui, and at the end he was actually, how do you call it? He died in his nidui, which means 100% that you know that you didn't pay it back. V'shalchu mitam, 1 minute. Shalchu mitam, so the psak halacha is, shamtuhu umet b'shamteh. If right now they put him in nidui and he died in his nidui, Hilchata keravuna bered Rav Yeshua. The halacha is like Ravuna bered Rav Yeshua, that we're not going to say the Yitomim Ketanim are not going to be chayav in mitzvot, but rather they have to actually are going to be chayav, and therefore you're going to collect from them right now. So now they're going to ask the following question: Arev shayash tarchov yutze mitachid edo. What happens if you have an arev that comes out, right? Ashtarchov, right? That means basically what happened was he's coming to be tovea the Yitomim, that they should pay him because he paid it back basically. Eno gove, he cannot collect from the Yitomim. If it's written, that I actually accepted the money from you, gove, he could collect from the Yitomim. So he says, it's good according to Rav Huna bar Yeshua. Listen, the father admitted that he was chayav, so you collect from the Yitomim. But according to Rav Papa, right, that Rav Papa was the one that says that they never are obligated to pay because they're ktanim. How do you find it? So answers the Gemara, Shanei Hatam, it's different over there. Lehachi tarach vekatav liitkabalti. But because of that, the Malveh came and he wrote down, right, itkabalti mimcha. Meaning the fact that he came and he wrote itkabalti mimcha tashlum, that causes the chiyuv of the Yitomim is to pay back, is now it's as if it's written in the shtar. It's not anyway more a milveh al peh. So therefore, once he comes and he says that now it's going to be written on the shtar, now it's a completely different halacha now. Because it's not like before there was just milveh al peh that they're not obligated to pay until after they become bar mitzvah, and then they have a mitzvah to pay back for their father's loans. It's a different halacha. Okay? Ha'u arba, there was an arev. The oved kochavim. Yeah? That he was an arev for a loan of an oved kochavim. Right? That means basically the loveh was obligated money to a goy. Okay? And he's an arev. The parelo oved kochavim. So he paid back the goy. Before coming for the Yitomim. Elmaleh of Mordechai l'Ravashi. Says that Mordechai. Yeah? L'Ravashi. This is what Avimi Meugrania comes and he says in the name of Rava. Even according to the mandamar that we're going to suspect for tzrade. Remember, tzrade is like a stack of money, right? Tzrarot, right? There's like a tzrade, right? So them coming and going to come with like a whole bunch of coins that he paid it back. Hanemi Israel. That's only going to be for Israel. Since he would go after an arev, we're not going to suspect for tzareh, which means like this. When do we suspect that maybe the father paid back? Only if he was paying back, right, the Israel. But if the father was not paying back the Israel and it was going to be an oved kochavim, we're not going to suspect that he paid him back. Why? Because anyway, he'll go to the arev. So we don't suspect that he paid back 5 minutes before his death to the oved kochavim. That is the shita of, right, the first shita. This is Hur of Mordechai to Ravashi. So says Ravashi, Elmaleh adraba, the exact opposite. Why? Even according to the one we're not going to suspect for tzrare, Hanaminu, one of these words, the Israel. But for Noveh Kochavim, Kevan the Dinayu Bataravazle, since their din is that they go after the Arev, he loved that if he didn't give them the money in the beginning of Makabale, he wouldn't actually accept it, right? He wouldn't have accepted himself to be an Arev. So therefore, in such a case, it's exact opposite Svara. You're telling me that for sure he would have paid back of Israel and not a Goy, right? It's not true. The exact opposite. He says, even according to the Mandamar, that we do not suspect, right? That we do not suspect of Tzrare, that's only by a Yisrael. But in the case of a Goy, He says, since they go after the Arev and they ask him for the loan always, if it wasn't for the fact that the Loveh was matpis to the Arev Tzorot, he wouldn't have accepted. Meaning, he already paid the Loveh the money. The Loveh. The Loveh paid the Arev the money. Right? Not that he paid back the Goy the money. By the Goyim, when you become a guarantor, they go directly to you, no matter what. So if they're going directly to you, right, obviously what happens is that means that they're coming straight for you. So it means if he wanted to agree to become a Loveh, Narev, the Loveh already gave him the money. So therefore he has the money. So you don't have to worry about it. Okay?
Why is he for?
What? No, afterwards. Right? When he's coming, he's going to become an Narev, he basically got the money. And therefore, he's not worried about it. That means for sure he gave the money to the Loveh, to the Arev.
No,
the Loveh gave the money to the Arev.
Gave the money to the guarantor.
No, even afterwards, when he's going to happen. Okay, when he's making this halva. That's what he says here. He knows that in Aved Kochavim, for sure he says he's going to come back on the Chov, not on the Loveh. So he would never accept himself to be an Arev on Stam Chov if he didn't give him any type of a collateral. So for sure he's got the collateral. He's got it. Right? And therefore, since he's got it, we don't have to worry about it. What? What? V'chen haya Rashbag omen, and that's what Rashbag comes and he says. Harev leisha b'ktubata v'chule. He comes and he says this. He says, right now, if a person is going to be an harev for a woman during her ketubah, right? Remember that in the ketubah, right, especially when they're doing a lot of money, they want to make sure that the guy's actually going to pay it off, not just time that he's show off. You know, some people, they like to be show offs. So we're not talking about that. Why? Because the guy comes and he says, this guy wants to show off. No problem. I want an harev. Why? All of a sudden, they're going to come. They're going to demand the ketubah. Sorry, I don't have money. No, you think I didn't know what was coming? Bring me an harev. I want an harev. So he says like this: Moshe bar Atzri arva de ketubata de kalateava. So there's the guy's name, Moshe bar Atzri. So he was an harev on the ketubah of his daughter-in-law. Ravuna berei, Ravuna his son. Shumen Rabbanava, he was a Tamil Chacham. And he was very, very dachuk. He didn't have a lot of money at all. He was very, very pressed for money. Amar Abaye, says Abaye, leka de nizel de nesve etza leRavuna de negarsha ledvitu. Nobody's going to come and give an etza to Ravuna to divorce his wife, right? And go collect the money from the father. And then get married again. You remember we saw this abarja yesterday, right? We saw this trick yesterday, right? So come, get divorced, right? Collect the ketubah, and after collecting the ketubah, get married again. So Amaleh Rava says, but we already learned you can't do that. Why can't you do that? Because we learned yesterday. But what do you do? What do you do to get out of this combina? What do we say yesterday? Very good. Ashvua al dat rabim. Dat rabim. But remember, the main core al dat rabim. Dat rabim means not just sama shivua, but you do a shivua, you go to the rabbi, no. Shivua al dat rabim, you cannot permit. Because since it's on dat everybody, you have to ask every single person in the world to come and forgive you, to do ataran nadim. You can't do that. So therefore, shivua al dat rabim, you cannot benefit from her. So it's not going to help. So Amaleh Abaye comes and he says, Atu called the megaresh bevedina megaresh. He says, I don't understand you. Right? You're right. If they would have done this in a betting and they would have come and they would have done, so then you're right. It would have solved everything. Why? You're suspecting for, right, this combinot, right, for this abarja. What is the suspicion? The suspicion is the guy's going to come. He's going to divorce the wife. She's going to collect the ketubah. He obviously doesn't have money. So he collects it. And then she's going to get married to him again. He said, Shvual dat rabim. He says, yeah, but that's only if they get married in Bedin. He says, what happens right now, right, if they're not going to get married in Bedin? If they're not going to get married in Bedin, right, he doesn't have to be moderana. He doesn't have to start swearing and doing all those things. So for you could do this trick. Imagine he comes, he gets the get from the sofer. They come, they do everything. There's no Bedin involved. There's no oaths, no nothing. She could do this trick. She gets the money. That's what they need. So give him the sitah. So says the Gemara, le sofi minta de kohen. It doesn't work. You know why he's a kohen? And since he's a kohen, obviously he couldn't take her back. So Amar Abaye comes and he says, Hainu de amre inche. That's what people say. Batar anya azla aniuta. The aniyut goes after the ani. That's why I told you, based upon this concept, right? I once heard from a Rabbanim, that's the reason why you don't leave empty bottles of wine on the table. Meaning when you finish a bottle of wine, right away you come and you take it off. You put a new one. Why? Batar aniyut azla aniuta. Always, you should have always full. The second it's empty, it's like aniyut. Well, I'm looking, there's nothing on the table. What's going on? Batar aniya azla aniyuta. So says the Gemara, does Abaye actually say such a thing? Then he's basically, 1 second, what's going on over here? Abaye said, who's the one that's going to give the advice to this Tamid Chacham, which was basically the son, right? The son, to come and to do this avarja, to do this kombinot. He says, Amar Abaye says, who's a Rasha Arum? You know who's a Rasha Arum? Right? He says an unclothed Rasha. So he comes and he says like this is the Mishnah Masechet Sotah, right? That he say also they're Mevalei Olam. But he comes and he says, Hamesi Etzah Limkor Benechasim, somebody that's going to come and to give an Etzah to his friend, to sell the properties during the lifetime, right? And therefore to stop so that it should go to somebody else, right? After the first one, like Rashbag. What does that mean? You remember we were learning Batra, so you know this case. Imagine right now a person comes and he says he's going to die. And he says, you know what? Nechasav goes to first Mr. A. And after Mr. A, the Nechasim, when he dies, it's going to go to Mr. B. Meaning it's not going to go to the inheritors of Mr. A. After Mr. A, it goes to Mr. B. So the halacha is that after it goes to Mr. A, right? When he dies, it goes to Mr. B. And then we had questions. What happens if Mr. B dies before Mr. A? And then there's Mr. C. And we all whole stories. Okay, fine. But he says, but you know what? I have a way out of it. You know the way out of it? When Mr. A gets it, tell Mr. A, give him an etzah, give him advice, sell it. Because right now he's allowed to sell it. It's his. So when he sells it, he automatically just took it out from Mr. B. Even very nice. He did it in a nice way, yeah, but he did it perfectly. So says the Gemara, Abaye says, that's a Rasha Arum. Why? Because he gave advice to his friend to sell the property like Shitat Rashbag. That he says that the second that he sells it, Kaddish. It actually works. So answers the Gemara, Beno Shane. You know why here it's not considered a Rasha Arum? It's because who did you give the advice to? The guy's son. The guy's son was doing the kinunya, was doing the abarja against his own father. That, he says, was not going to be the problem. And Subram Rabbanan Shane, and it's also that he's a rabbi. So since he was a rabbi and also that he was the son, so therefore there's not going to be a problem, right? So here in the footnote, it actually says you need both. Meaning you need that has to be his son plus a Talmid Chacham. And then both of them together, they say, you know what? The means justify the ends is going to be okay in such a case. Only both together. That it was also his son and also he was a rabbi, then it would be okay to give the Eitzah. Again, it didn't work the Eitzah because he was a Kohen. So it doesn't work, right? But if he wasn't a Kohen, they would have given him the Eitzah because of the two things together. He was also a Turbam Rabbanan and he was also his son. So says the Gemara, right? 1 second. Veha arevu. He comes and he says, 1 second. He's an arev. Moshe Baratzri was only an arev. The kaimelan we paskin arev de ketubah lo mishtabed. He's not mishtabed to come and to pay back the ketubah, right? So therefore, if he's not mishubad right now, meaning if you accept upon yourself to come and to be an arev on the ketubah, it's not chal. So he says the Gemara is going to explain why. So he says, so what does that mean? So answers the Gemara, you're right. He wasn't a regular arev. He was an arev kablan. So since he was an arev kablan, he is obligated for the entire ketubah. So anicha le mandamar, that's only good according to the mandamar. Kablan de ketubah, even if he doesn't have any properties lebal, right? Mishtabed, it's still going to be mishtabed. Shapir, so it's going to be good. But according to the mandamar, yitle mishtabed, lo mishtabed, that only if the husband has properties, so then the arev kablan is going to be mishubad, and if he does not have properties, so then not have, meaning like this: the son never had money. So if you're going to tell me then that only if the son has the properties, then the father, which is the arev kablan, is mishtabed, and if he doesn't have properties, he's not. So what are you going to say then? Michael Lemema. So answers the Gemara. If you could answer Mia Havale, he did have properties, vishtaduf, and they got ruined. If you could answer that a father to a son will always subjugate himself, even if the son does not have any properties. Meaning, a person would think to himself, listen, you want me to be an arev on your ketubah, you don't even have properties. Why in the world would I be an arev kablan on your ketubah? If you have properties, I would say, okay, fine. You know why? Because it's probably going to have his properties. He'll go to him. Worst case scenario, then he'll come back to me. But if not, it's like, Kilu, you're signing off on the deal. That you already know they're coming to you to collect. Right? So he comes and he says, the father to a son will always subjugate himself. Okay? The Itmar Bezu was stated, Arev de Ketubah, Divre Akol Mishtabed. So a regular Arev on a Ketubah, according to everybody, is not Mishtabed. Kablan de Balchov, a Kablan on a Balchov, everybody agrees that it's going to be Mishtabed. Kablan de ketubah ve'arev de balchov. But if it's going to be a kablan by a ketubah, arev kablan, and an arev, a regular arev by a balchov, plige it's a machloket. More savar, ile nixel love mishtabed, ile le lo mishtabed, or more savar ben ile ben le mishtabed. Basically, what happens is it comes out of machloket. One more time. According to everybody, a regular and arev and a ketubah, rien, klum, shum davar. It's nothing. It's as if you called him an arev, you didn't do anything. Why is a regular arev? Regular an arev and ketubah is nothing. You can make a chart, doctor. Right? Arev by a ketubah, shum davar. Lo mishtabed. Next, right? Kablan by a balchov, an arev kablan. Arev kablan on a balchov, according to everybody, he's mishtabed. Right? Why? It's a chov and it's arev kablan. Okay. One is a machloket then. He comes and he says, a kablan by a ketubah, and a regular arev by a balchov. Why? First Mandamar says, only if he has properties, you're mishtabed. If he does not have properties, you're not mishtabed. Who's the one that has the properties? The loveh, the borrower, or the one that's writing the ketubah. If he has properties, you're mishtabed. If he does not have, you're not mishtabed. According to the second Mandamar, you're always mishtabed. So that's the machloket. So one more time, you have the ones on the right, which are called lechule alma, which is going to be a regular arev, right, which is no, and a kablan by a balchov, which is yes, right? That what's called that is yes, and then you have the arev ragil by a balchov and a kablan by a ketubah, which is a machloket. What is halacha? Behilchata, what is halacha? Bekulu. In all the cases that we mentioned, mishtabed, he is going to be mishtabed. Bar me'arev de ketubah de'afagav de'ile lebaal lo mishtabed. That means the only exception to the rule is the arev, regular arev by a ketubah. In all the other cases, he is mishtabed. All the other cases, he subjugates himself. The only one is a regular arev by a ketubah. Why? Mitzvah hu David. He's doing a mitzvah, right, to get married. V'lav midi chasra, so therefore he's not mechaser klum, right, from the woman b'nisuin elu. And therefore he comes and he says, since he's coming and he's doing a mitzvah, right, that means basically the arev is causing the person to do a mitzvah. So therefore he's not mechaser ota. So therefore, according to that, the opposite. He's doing something, it's doing something for her good. So since he's doing something for her good, because basically a woman always wants to be married than to stay like a black widow, right, or to stay, no, they call it the old maid, right, they call it old maid. So therefore, right, he comes and he says, right, in such a case, right, he comes and he says he's not taking out any money, so therefore he's not going to be gomer bedato in such a case. Okay, so Amar Ravuna says, Shchiv Mera. When we're talking about now a new case of a Shchiv Mera, Sheikdish Kol Nechasav, he comes and he's going to consecrate all his properties. Amar, and afterwards he comes and he says, Manele Ploni Biadi, that I have a Manele Ploni in my hand, and I already made it a Gdesh. Ne'eman, he's going to be Chayav. Why? Chazakar Adam Oseh Kenunya Legdesh. A person wouldn't do an abarja with a Egdesh. Meaning a person could do a abarja on his friend, but not an Egdesh. On Egdesh, on Shamaim, he's not going to do such a thing. So Matkif la Rav Nachman, asked Rav Nachman, V'chi Adam Oseh Kenunya al Banav? Yeah, but according to you, is a person going to do a Kenunya on his children? The Rav Ushmol Dam Netavayu, Shriv Mira Shama Manelu Ploni Biadi, Amar Tzenu, not Tzinu, they give it. Amar, lo Amar Tzenu, but if he didn't say Tzenu, they don't give it. Alma Adam Asuya Shalol Ashbiat Banav, he says he doesn't want to come and that they shouldn't look like they're rich. And therefore he's not going to be Ne'eman, right? Lasbiat Banav, right? Beodato, what does that mean? You see from here that a person does not want that ki'ilu, that his children will look rich. Right? That means we're going to say that really be'emet, they're shayach to him. It's not nachon that it actually belongs to somebody else. The only reason why he said that was that people, like this, imagine a person comes and he's dying, and people think that he's got $1 million. Whatever it is, let's say they know he's... So what does he do right away? This, I've got 500,000 that belongs to Mr. X. Does it really belong to them? No. Why is he doing that? He's only doing that because he doesn't want that people are going to think that his children are rich. So for right away, he says, yeah, I owe this guy and the other guy. Does he really owe them? He doesn't owe them. He's just doing it just to get out, right, of this problem. So it says, Hachirami, so to hear the exact same thing. When a person comes and is Magdish Nechasav, right, he's going to consecrate his properties, and afterwards he's going to come and he's going to say that he's got money in the hands of somebody. Adam Asui Shelo Lasbiat, that's more. He doesn't want to come make it look like himself that he's going to be rich. So answers the Gemara, Ki Ka'amar Ravuna Hatam, when does Ravuna say it over there? The Nakit Shtara, when you have a shtar. Meaning when you have a shtar, and now he comes and he says, by the way, this shtar is correct, he's going to be believed. Without a shtar, he's not going to be believed. Okay?